Hey everyone, I hope that you are doing well on this second day of Unit 2. I wanted to make some announcements and comments about the timeline assignment as we're going with that now. Remember that the due date for the ID step was last night. Those are due on the first day of the unit. You can still submit anything and everything if you missed it, but just wanted to point that out for those of us who are trying to keep on the schedule. Um, you may notice that the timeline has a different background than it did before. I'll say more about that in just a second. But first, I just wanted to let everyone know that for the Unit 2 timeline assignment, you have the option of reading the feedback that I give you via Blackboard and revising your post in order to earn up to full credit. So you can revise and resubmit for this time around. I do that because I know that Tiki-Taki is new to most of us, if not all of us. This assignment is new to all of us, and so so that we can all have a feel for what we should be doing and how it should work, and what I'm looking for as I provide feedback to you and that sort of thing, you do have that option. If you choose to do some revisions, you do not need to resubmit your work to Blackboard. You can just make all those revisions on Tiki-Taki and then send me an email to let me know that you've done that, and then I will know to go back in and update your score. So that is the first announcement I wanted to make. Next, I wanted to point out a couple of things about the assignment in general. Overall, we're doing a great job. You'll notice that all of these little tiles, essentially look the same in terms of their layout, how they're constructed. Sometimes people accidentally post their whole entries into the space where you're supposed to put your name. So you'll notice nobody's done that. If they had, you would see a bunch of text on these tiles in italics. So good job with that. Thank you for watching the other tutorial and formatting the timeline well. In terms of the entries, one thing that some of us missed is that historical significance piece. So for the timeline entry, you do want to just kind of answer the who, what, where, when type of questions, just to let us know how to define the entry that you've chosen, whether that's a person, a place, or an event. What are its defining features? When was the person born? Those kinds of things, just to tell the story. So once you've told the story, you need to then add a few sentences that explain in your own words why the topic you've chosen is historically significant. And so what I mean by that is you need to answer the question of, so what, who cares? And I've had editors who've told me that in writing essays for different books that I've contributed to. You need to be really careful about letting others know why this thing matters. It's not enough to list off some of the things that are significant about the topic you've chosen. And that's feedback that I gave to quite a few of us, is you've mentioned many things that are significant, but you haven't explained why they are significant. So if you look back at your post and you see that you have not addressed the question of, so what, who cares, that's what you need to go back and do. So tell us, for example, why the Coronado expedition is important to New Mexico history, even though it failed in so many ways. There are many ways that you could approach that. You could talk about the kinds of anthropological information that the expedition brought back, that it found the Grand Canyon, that it learned about the Pueblos, and then explain how that information was later used. That helps us understand in a specific way why Coronado's expedition was important. You could also go a different route. You could talk in specific terms about connecting to the Tigua War, for example, how Coronado's expedition really got off on the wrong foot in terms of Spanish-Pueblo relations, and it set the terms in a very violent way for the ways that Pueblos thought about the Spaniards, the ways that they came to understand them. And so in that way, it's significant because it set a tone of violence for the region in terms of colonization and contact. So again, those are just examples for that specific one that I've been hovering my cursor on here. But I wanted to give you some examples to help you think about that and how you might approach it. And of course, as with everything, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, so that's one thing that I mentioned to quite a few of us as I was looking over the timeline this morning. Another thing, I wanted to point out some more technical types of things in the rest of this video. So it's going to be a little bit longer, just so that I can show you a couple of the other things that I've pointed out. So first, there were a few of you who forgot, for one, to submit your work to Blackboard as well as here on the timeline. If you're in that position, I will be able to find your work this time around because the timeline is still relatively empty. We're just getting started, but as it fills up, I won't be able to find your work here and give you credit unless you've also posted to Blackboard so that I can know what you did, what topic you chose, and I can know to go look for it here on the timeline. Let's see, I'm trying to remember which one of these I was going to open. I believe it's this entry, Leandra's entry on Popeye, because I wanted to show you, she did a great job of formatting this. I'm going to make my head a little smaller here so that you can see this. She included an image and a video, which again, you don't have to do, but it's awesome that she did. Great video, great image of Popeye's statue in the Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C., and a good overview of Popeye's participation in the revolt that focuses on his specific significance. You'll notice, so there's no button down here to click on for the outside source. And I don't mean to be a stickler, but one of the things that you get points for the outside source is that you've embedded it in Tiki-Taki. And so I did point that out to a few of us that you should go back and embed your outside source in your entry. So I'm going to open a new tab real quick. I know this is the outside source that Leandra chose because I saw her submission on Blackboard. Another reason you need to submit your work to Blackboard as well, because if you just submitted this with no submission to Blackboard, you couldn't get any credit for an outside source, if that makes sense. So I'm going to show you how to add that. I'm going to go into the admin section here, scroll down to Popeye, and then you click just right here in this empty link box. I'm going to paste in the URL for the source that I just copied and click Save. And now you'll notice, as I scroll down, now there is this Find Out More box. You can click on it and it will open that same PBS article on Popeye. So that's an excellent source, and that's how you add it. So I'm going to close those tabs. I am going to revert this because I'm giving everybody the opportunity. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to revert it to the way it was before I messed with it because I'm giving everybody the opportunity to go back in and make revisions. Let's see. I don't think anybody was having issues finding images or grabbing the correct URLs for those. If you ever find that you've chosen an image that doesn't display correctly, it may be that you didn't get the URL for the image itself, but you used the one from the browser bar. There's more information about that in the main video tutorial on how to use Tiki-Taki. One other thing I wanted to show you, and this actually doesn't happen very often, and I'm not meaning to pick on anyone, but here in Mary's entry on Juan de Oñate, this is a great image, a painting of an early conquistador. The problem is this one's not Oñate. This is actually Coronado. You might not know that, and some websites don't make it very clear that there are websites that may have mislabeled this as Oñate, for example. Or if you do an image search, this might come up as Oñate. If you're not exactly sure and you have any reason to believe that your image isn't the person that it's claiming to be, you can do a reverse Google Images search. And so let me just show you how to do that real quick in case you don't. So I've pulled up the image in a different way so that I can grab the URL. Remember that you need to click directly on the image, right-click, and then choose Copy Image Address to get the URL for the image. Then you go, oops, let me just go back to the front page of images. You go to images.google.com, and rather than typing something in the bar to search, you click on this little camera where it says Search by Image. Now I can paste the URL in there, and it will search by that image that we found. And you'll notice this is saying Juan Vasquez de Coronado. It's Francisco Vasquez de Coronado right here. So you can see there's the connection to this image. Also on the west, the PBS site, this is labeled as Coronado. So again, you can know this is Coronado rather than Oñate. And again, that happens. That's something about the internet and finding information there that we have to be careful of, even with images. So I just wanted to point that out because it's something to keep in mind and look out for. And as with everything for class, I'll give you feedback and point things out, and you can always go and rework things and resubmit them. Lastly, I'm going to go way back to the beginning here. A couple of these, Pueblo Revolt by Mariah and Malintzin by Loretta, these got posted at BC. So of course, Doña Marina or Malintzin, her story took place at the time of the conquest of Mexico in 1519 CE, the Common Era. So just make sure when you place these on the timelines, you don't accidentally do BC. Also, just make sure that you have the correct time, because sometimes if you put a placeholder at the wrong time, others won't realize that there's already a placeholder for that thing because they're looking for it at 1680, for example. Pueblo Revolt was in 1680 CE. So again, not things that are hugely problematic, just things I wanted to point out that you should look out for, and things that we can revise and rework. That's something that I think is important as we go along, is working together to revise and rework everything that we've done so that it reflects accurate information and that it helps us better understand New Mexico's past. And I think I already said that was the last thing, but I lied. I had one last thing. I mentioned a minute ago that you may notice the background image is different on the timeline. Please be careful not to change the kind of overall settings of the timeline. You don't ever need to click on this settings button here for anything. Some of you may have done that. You can do that because we're all logged in the same way. But in here, this is right here, the URL for the background image. It got changed and it was just blank, and I'm not really sure what happened. And so I just updated it with a new one. So that's, again, just something to keep in mind. You don't need to do anything with this. You can avoid that. If, though, you find that your entry doesn't fit the categories that I've already created, it is okay to go and put in a new category if for some reason you want to do that, because yours isn't an event, a person, a place, or a theme, something else that you think is important and matters to New Mexico history, you can do that by all means. Don't use the spans or the feeds either, please, because those can end up importing a bunch of just kind of information from the internet into the timeline. And that's not what we're going for here. So focus on just using the stories tab right there and adding your own stories as we go along. I hope that all makes sense. I hope it's helpful. I'm really enjoying our work together thus far, and please let me know what questions you have.